Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Tonight we're going to look at JWT, the JSON Web Token. And first of all, why would we use this web token? There are many good reasons for doing that. One good reason is that it's a standard, and all of the clouds are using this way of authenticating users. So first of all, a JWT, it actually stands for JSON Web Token. That is the abbreviation, JWT, and it has three parts. So it has a header, it has a payload, and it also has a signature. And the header and the payloads, those are base 64 encoded, and then there is a punctuation between them, a dot between them. And the signature is made by taking the header and taking the payload and concatenating those two in the base 64 encoded format, and then signing them with some kind of encryption standard, like it could be the RS-256. Then you have a private and a public key, and then you would sign that information, and then you will place that information as the last part of the JWT. So this means that JWT stands for contains three parts, and it looks a bit like this right here. So here we have an example. So we have something in base 64. Then you have a dot, and then you have something else that is a payload, and then dot. So we have the header, dot, payload, dot, and then the signature in the end. And the signature, that is what makes it secure. That is that is a proof that it was you who sent this, and not someone else. And that is actually the secure part. Anyone can read both the signature, both the header part, and also the payload part. So do not put anything secret in those. You can just base 64 decode it, and then you would be able to see all of that. So there's nothing secret in that. So one flow could look like this. You have an authorization server. This is the one that usually issues the JWTs, the JSON Web Tokens, and that can actually issue that just on the background of a basic authentication request. So maybe you will send a username and password to an authorization server. It can be something called Keycloak. Keycloak is a free one, and you can try to start that up with Docker. I'll probably make a video where I do that. It's quite awesome to play with, and you can just create some users with username and password, and then you can get a JWT returned. Or else there are other clouds. The clouds are using JWTs a lot. So that's the Google Cloud, AWS, Azure, for instance, also DigitalOcean. But the flow is that you send this request to the authorization server, and then you get this JWT back. That is the usual flow. You can actually also, there are very different versions of this, but this is one flow. Let me just finish this flow right here. So then you get this JWT returned, and as you can see up here, it looks like this. It's base 64 encoded, so it's just one long string with a lot of characters in it. Then you add that to the header when you want to connect to the resource server. The resource server is the server you actually want some information from. In this situation right here that I've made, it is a weather forecast Google Cloud function. So that is it's a server that actually returns the forecast for tomorrow. And in order to use that, you have to be authenticated, because it is a paid service. You need to check that you actually that you're registered and that you're paid, and that you have access to this server right here. And then if everything was well, and if you added that in a header, in the bearer part, so you will add a HTTP header that says authorization, and then bearer, and then space, and then the long string that you got returned from the authorization server. If you send that along with the request, which could be anything, right, a HTTP request, then you will get the response, because then the resource server will verify the token at the authorization server. It will actually send the token to the authorization server, and then it will ask the authorization server, can you verify this? Is this okay? And then the authorization server will give a response. It could give a response that says yes, it's fine, it's perfect. It could also give another response that it has been expired, or that the client has forgotten to put in some of the claims. A claim is a key value pair in the payload. So maybe the client forgot to put in the subject, or the audience, or the target audience, or the issuer part, or the expired part, etc., etc., etc. Then that message could also go back into the client, and usually those errors are they're quite verbose, so that's easy to discover. That's one of the good things with JWT. I think that when you forget to add something in the payload, then it is quite obvious. And of course, it can be less obvious if it is a security error that you get. That you will just get 401 unauthorized if the signature part is wrong. But usually, when you get the 401, then it's because there's an error in the signature part, which is also good. If we look at these, so that is the flow, and then you get the results, day, tomorrow, forecast, sunny, right? And then you're happy because you actually got, you first you authorized yourself, authenticated yourself, and then you use that JWT, the JSON Web Token that you got back, use that to get this result right here. That's fine. That's good, and this also means that you can actually have a single sign-up architecture, because you can actually have, now that you have this token, maybe you can use this token to other resource servers also. That depends on how you have actually set up your whole domain landscape, right? So then you can use it to another resource server. That resource server can then also check with the authorization server, and then it says yes, it is, you are who you say you are. So you can also get, I don't know, the weather forecast for, or maybe it could be some football results. Then you can get the football results also with the same token. That's of course, that's up to you how you decide how you design your domain landscape. So that is one situation. But so we have the header part, and it is all JSON, as you can see right here. The reason why the people behind the JWT chose JSON over XML is that it's easier to convert JSON into programmable objects, because with XML you can both have attributes, you can also have child elements. This means that there's not a one-to-one between a piece of XML to an object. While with JSON it's more straight ahead, where you have some fields, and you can also have objects inside it, of course. So it is easier to convert JSON into programmable objects. That's why they chose that. So that is why it is JWT and not XWT. Yeah, so in the header, there is something called type, and that is usually set to JWT, because this was proof that now we're dealing with JWT, and then the receiver knows, okay, this is a JSON Web Token, and then we have the algorithm that is used to sign the whole thing with in the end, and that is RS256 in this situation. And then you have the payload with the claims. A claim is just a key value pair inside the payload area. So claim just equals to key value pair. There are different types of claims. We have the registered ones. Those are the ones that is almost always used, like the subject, the audience, not before, issuer, expiring, or issued at. Then we have something called public. Public claims, those are the ones that are registered at a public server, and the people use, and they use it in a certain way. I'll show that in just a minute. And then we have something called private claim. A private claim is something, for instance, Google, they have invented this one called target audience. It's not a public claim, it's not a registered claim. It is a private claim because it is something Google has invented, which is specific to the Google implementation of the security. So those are the 3 points. I'll show you. Let me show you the public. Here we have the public claims. Those are defined right here. When you are playing around with JWT, then you need to know about JWT.io, because here you can actually debug and place your token right here, and then it can actually tell you whether your signature is correct. It will also base 64 decode both your header and your payload, and you can check whether or not you are happy with with what you see, and whether it's for debugging reasons. And then another thing that's cool with JWT is that at some point at the jwt.io, I mean the webpage, is that they have a list of libraries right here. So you just go to your favorite programming language. I prefer Java, so I just press Java right here. And then I get a list of cool frameworks that I can try and use. And here's the list of which algorithms are supported. Since I just want to use IS-256, then I will just use this framework right here. And I must say, especially this framework here, it was very, very easy to use. It's very cool, it's very awesome, and it has 5,000 stars. And there's a Git repo where there are examples, and there's a community behind it. And there's a place to ask questions if you have any. Usually, of course, where you'll be stuck is usually actually with the signing part and with the private. If you use a private and public key, then which format should the keys be in? Is it okay that you add new lines inside the private key? That is usually that's usually where the problem is if you get an error and everything actually looks fine. Okay, but that was that. So then we have another thing. That is these are the registered claims that I just want to show you right here. We have ISS for issuer, we have sub for subject, AUD for audience, we have expiration time, we have not before, we have issued at, we have JWT ID. So and there's a lot more, right? So those are the registered ones. Those are kind of used on all of the on all of the implementations. If you want to invent something yourself, if you want to invent a new claim, first check if the name that you're trying to that you want to use, if it's already here, then don't use exactly that name. Change your name a bit. If the name is there and also the definition is exactly what you also had in mind, then it's fine. Then you can use the same name, because then it's the same definition as people would expect you to use when you add a name inside your claim, for instance. Yeah. Another setup. So that was one situation where we had a basic authentication setup. You can also have another setup, and that is actually this is how the request usually looks. You will post you will make a post to some server, for instance, the Google token, your endpoint, and then you would then give an authorization like this. And sometimes then you will give a JWT token, or sometimes you will give a credentials base64 encoded. That depends on your authorization server, but that's the part after the bearer. So usually your header would look like this: authorization, bearer, and then token or credentials. And then you will get a response like this: token ID equals to blah blah blah, a long string, which will look something like this up here. So that is the flow there. If you want to play with a cloud function, then you can actually use something called a service account with Google. You can sign your own JSON web token using that library that we just looked at before. You just add that library to your POM file, and then you can create your own JWT. You don't have to think about this part. This will be auto-generated for you when you're signing it. What you need to think about is all of these claims right here. You have to read the documentation to see how you should actually use these registered claims that are right here. And then you have to sign. Then you have to sign the whole thing with a private key if you use the IS-256 standard. And then you send that to the authorization server, and then you will actually get a new WT back, return from the authorization server, which has then been signed with the ID token, the identity token from Google. So this means you will get a new JWT back. And this situation here is good if you have a service account. Then you will usually create something called a key. Then you will get a .json file. Inside that JSON file, there you would have a private key that you can use to sign this whole thing with, and then you can authorize yourself with that private key with the JSON web token, and then you will get a new JSON web token, and the new JSON web token is the one that you will actually use to verify to authenticate yourself against the Google Cloud function, and then you will get the result right here. That's quite cool. Let me show you a code example right here. So let me show you a code example I've prepared. I created this JWT helper right here. The JWT helper, it can do two things. It can generate a JWT. It takes a lot of these the claims, and I've been reading the Google documentation on how these claims should be formed. And of course, if you use another cloud provider, then you have to read. That is a bit weird, but not weird. That's the thing with JWT. You have to read on what is expected. It's not like there is an exact standard that says every time you see a subject, then that means that this must be the email address of the service account, for instance. That is a bit different depending on which authorization server implementation that you're using. So some values that need to be one way with Google, that they do not need to be the exact same way with Amazon or Asia or DigitalOcean or Keycloak. No, so that's it. But there are some things that are usually the same. That is the expiry date, and it's a bit annoying. We have to use the util dates, but that's okay. We still get some good expiry date right there. And then we can create a private key. We have to create this private key from the string. So it means that we download this JSON file. If we go to Google Cloud and if we create a service account and then if we create a key, then we will get a file like this, a JSON file like this, and in there will be a private key. Remove all of the /n's, remove the new lines, and if you don't want to code it, then also remove the begin private key and the end private key. I have copied some code from Stack Overflow that actually does that for us. So that means that when we are creating this private key right here, then you can see right here, we are removing the begin private and then end, and we're also removing the spaces. Yeah, it's all the white spaces. And then we are decoding it from base 64 because the key is in base 64 encoded format. Then you get some bytes, and those bytes can then be converted into a RSA private key, which is returned in this method right here. It looks like a lot of lines, but if you don't think about all of the cleaning up, and if you don't think about this is also cleaning up, this means that if there are multiple lines, then it will actually just make one line. So yeah, I'll provide you with this code on my GitHub account as usual, and just so you know, the JSON here is obfuscated. It's not real values. I have put the real values in my environment variables. So yeah, so it is okay. Yeah, so you can't use the you can't use the service account key. That's just what I tried to say. And what else was it here? Then we have verify. That's another thing we have. So that was create JWT. And there we create the private key because we need this RSA private key class type or object type, and then we use that for. Let me just show that we use that right here. So first, then we get that. Then we have a build JWT method right here that I've created, and I'm using that framework. So this is where the cool framework shows its strength. Because we call JWT create, and then we just say with subject, with not before, with issue that. We can see that it's real text. So we don't have to remember that it's like ISS for issue and stuff like that, and AUD for audience. And with claim, and this is you can see this is a Google private claim because it is something Google invented. And then we put that right there. And then in the end, I say sign that with the RSA256 algorithm. And we do not need a public key when we are creating a JWT, but we need a private key. So we can just leave this for now and this with the right private key. The other way around, when we want to verify something, then we need the public key, but not the private key. But the cool thing about this framework right here, then when we call this, then it has already base 64 encoded the first part, the second part, the first part, the header part, and it has base 64 encoded the payload part. It has signed the base 64 encoded concatenated header plus payloads, and it has signed it with the right algorithm. That is what this cool library does for us. So we just have this could be a one-liner, right? But so we have one line of code instead of like a lot of lines of code. So that is awesome part where we need that library. And if you're using another coding language than Java, of course, you just take that library that matches that. Okay, so that was that was the JWT. So now, then we get the JWT. Then we can verify the same key. How do we verify it? We verify it by getting the public key. If you have a service account with Google, if you create a key, then all of your keys will actually be public, and you can reach those at certain endpoints. They have that in documentation. I have also placed these in. I placed these right here. So we have one, and they have them in different formats. There's something called raw format. Then you get a modules and a exponent value that is mathematical values, and then you need to use those values. I have used the certificate instead. So this is the public certificate. This is the public certificate value instead. And as you can see right here, they are public accessible. That's the whole idea, that everybody can actually verify that when I send a token that I've signed with my private key, then they can verify that with the public key. That's the whole idea with this setup, right? So yeah, so that was the verify part. So I use that certificate right here, right there, and then I say decode here, right here. If there was something wrong with the token, versus the public key versus the certificate, it's an X509 certificate that we are using here. Then I will get an exception right here, and then I will get a problem right here. But if this over here goes okay, then everything works fine, and I can print out the header, the payload, and also the signature. So that's quite cool. And I've created tests to just show you that. I've actually created tests to call I've made a test to call the cloud function. Let me call that actually. So first of all, this will give me the ID token, because this will call the authorization, Google authorization server, and then it will actually return this new JWT to me. This is actually the situation right here. So then it will give me a new JWT right here, and then I will so that's what I have right here, and then I will call this weather cloud function that I have right here. Let me just show that. I will just go to weather right here. So this is my weather cloud function. I'll press edit, and here we have the code. This Java code is very, it's a small font, so I recommend that you actually place your code in some kind of source control management system like Git, and then use your usual editor like IntelliJ, and then you can get a font that is actually readable. I cannot zoom in by scrolling, by holding control and then scrolling the mouse. It does not help anything. But you can probably see that this line right here, the weather will be sunny. So that is my whole program. It will always return the weather will be sunny, no matter what. So let us try to run that. And that is actually what's happening here. I'm using the REST template right here. That is a REST template. And then I have my requests right here, my function request right here. I have nothing in the body, it's just a blank body. Then I have the headers, and here we have the headers. That's the important part. We have authorization, bearer, and the ID token that I got from the first call. That's very important, right? When I send something to the authorization server, then I get a new JWT back, and that is what I put in the second call to my cloud function. And let us see if it works. It runs, and of course it works. Yes, we are happy. Let's see in the end here. The weather will be sunny. Yes, it will be. It will be. So that is actually it. That is JWT. Sometimes when you use an API gateway with Google, then you will only have to send the JWT that you signed yourself, because then the API gateway will actually do the hassle with authenticating against the authorization server, and then it will change your header to actually have the new JWT token when it continues towards the resource server. It's just something that you have to know. If you use the Google API gateway, it will save you the hassle from calling you twice. You can just send this once. And if you don't know what a service account is, let me just show that. So service account. Service account. Right there. Then I have this weather client service account. Then we have some keys. And I can create add key. This is where the key that I was talking about. JSON. Yes, thank you very much. And then I could open the key now, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to delete it again. You will get a key that looks something like this. And of course, I've obfuscated the values, but yeah. That's it. That's what I wanted to show you tonight. Hope you learned something. And it is very difficult. Security is always difficult. It's always a hassle. I guess it has to be. Bye-bye.